So now it's my honor to introduce our guest speakers, Lucine Yu. When I envisioned a guest speaker for our scene, Lucine was the immediate choice. I first encountered her captivating mind in her class, where her discussion of the Speluncean explorer's case shattered an afternoon's sleepiness. She is a rebellious thinker, speaker, and actor, inherently resistant to conventional answers. Her past confirms this. A PhD candidate in law at Peking University. She is a non-typical scholar educated across Hong Kong and New York, a former lawyer who stepped away from the typical path, and a mind endlessly drawn to art, photography, and fashion. Get ready to have your perspectives challenged. A warm welcome to Lucine Yu.
So, hi everyone, I'm Lucine, and I'm currently a PhD candidate at Peking University. But more importantly, for some of you, I'm the teacher who runs the Fun Jurisprudence elective course. So the term jurisprudence is just a fancy word for philosophy of law. It's about big questions like what is law? But let's set aside these awkward terms. Actually, I asked my student to discuss a very interesting or kind of creepy question. Whether it's okay to eat people in a cave. So for those of you not in my class, let me explain. My entire course revolves around a famous hypothetical case called the case of Speluncean explorer. The facts is simple but dramatic. So 5 adventurers set out to explore a cave. They trap deep inside after a landslide and have no food. So as they wait for rescue, they realize they will starve to death before help arrives. So they made an impossible decision. They cut the death, and the loser becomes the dinner of the rest, which means they kill and eat one of them, allowing the rest to survive until they're rescued. So here comes the question. Are the survivors murderers? Should they be found guilty? So every semester, in the very first day of my class, I do a survey. I don't ask for complex legal analysis. I only ask one thing, their gut reaction, their feelings, what does their intuition tells. Should the survivors be found guilty, which means that they should be branded by law as murder and sentenced to death, meaning they survived the cave only to die anyway? Or do they feel they should not be found guilty? They can walk free, go back home, get the chance to live a long and happy life, although they killed a person. So you can cast a vote in your own mind now. What does your intuition tell you? So here's the fascinating part. I have taught this course for 4 semesters, and I can never predict the outcome. For one semester, basically everyone says not guilty, and the next 50-50, and this semester, basically everyone says guilty. This proves a simple thing. Feelings change. They are fluid, personal, and unpredictable. So every time after the survey, a hands go up, and another. They all ask the same question. Teacher, what's the answer? I know what they are looking for. They are looking for the truth, with capital T. An answer from the authority figure in front of the room. And that's what exactly I was looking for when I decided to study law. And that decision, by the way, was made exactly here in the hallway of 101. In fact, 101 was my home for 6 years, all through junior and senior high. So at that time, my life feels like a messy whirlwind full of feelings, but the law in the contract seems to be the ultimate source of order, a stable, logical system with either white or black. So I plan to become guardians of that truth. So I entered a law school in Hong Kong for my undergraduate degree, and then to US for my master's. It was there, in a law school classroom, I got my first hint that the word of law may be less about objective truth and more about something else entirely. It happened in a course called negotiation. It's an important course for any aspiring lawyers, and our professor, who's also a partner in a top international law firm, told us in the first class, and I quote, "At a negotiating table, you never show you're happy or unhappy unless you're intentional." So that hit me. I was expecting my first lesson to be about complex legal statutes, about unshakable logical of legal analysis, but the very first, most important piece of advice was about feelings. So with that advice in my pocket, I entered the workforce and become a transactional lawyer. So say, when you hear the word lawyer, what image pops into your mind? I guess for most of you, it should be a scene where one argues passionately in a courtroom, defending his client for a dramatic case like murder or robbery. We call them litigation lawyer. Believing a world of conflicts and trials, but I become another kind, transactional lawyer. We don't go to court. Our world is not about dispute, but about deals, about transactions. We're the ones who walk in glass-walled offices in CBD, very sharp suit, making sure that a big business deal, like a company buying another, goes smoothly. So the formal name for what I do is merger and acquisition, or M&A. So, right after law school, I landed a job at one of the top law firms in the country doing exactly that, M&A, cross-border M&A. Sounds glamorous, right? But the reality, not so glamorous. My most important work happened on 2 a.m. in the morning on a conference call with clients from maybe New York or London. Instead of delivering the killer lines at the negotiating table, I was proofreading 500 pages contract just to find a misplaced comma. I was spending weeks doing due diligence. It's like, for example, checking the patent registration of a target company one by one just to make sure they're real. So my client could pay a little less or ask for a bit more. So that's when I realized my professor was right. This job has nothing to do with truth. It's all about feelings. How much is the company worth? It's worth whatever the buyer feels like paying, or whatever a seller feels like accepting. So after 2 years of this, I feel bad. I feel exhausted. So what do you do when a job makes you feel bad? I quit. I went back on my hunt for the truth. I came here at Peking University to pursue my PhD. So guess what I found? Things got even more confusing. In undergrad, you study for exams. There must be a right answer and a wrong answer. But in a PhD program, the more you learn, the more you realize that nobody agrees on anything. Whether my paper gets published seems less depend on the truth of my finding, but more on whether on a particular day an anonymous reviewer feels good about my writing. So I decided to leave the library behind and do a field research at the courtroom to see the law in action, because remember, I never get the chance to become a litigation lawyer, so I'm curious. Maybe they are the real guardians of the truth. The routine work is quite boring, but one afternoon, I got a phone call from a very angry litigant. He complained that the judgment is completely wrong and demanded to talk to the judge. So the whole judicial team got on the phone and argued with him for like half an hour, trying to persuade him that we are making the decision exactly according to the law. But at one moment, he suddenly said, let's don't talk about what law says. Let's only talk about human feelings. I was like, maybe go to see a therapist if the human feelings is the only thing that we want to talk about. But then I started to wonder, maybe he was onto something. Think about it. Societal value are, in essence, collective feelings. When those feelings shift, the law, the truth, often follows. real time. In 2014, I was a freshman in law school. We had taken the debate about whether same-sex marriage should be legalized in the US. At that time, we treated it as a difficult legal puzzle. But what is really happening at that time across the entire nation is a shifting in collective feelings. People's shared sense of justice, people's feeling about what was right, what was fair, what equality truly meant, are changing. So only 1 year later, the debate was over because the US Supreme Court delivered a judgment, declared the same-sex marriage a constitutional right. And after the decision, the marriage laws across the country were rewritten to finally recognize same-sex couples on equal terms. The truth changed because the feelings did. So here comes the sudden truth. Today is my 30-year-old birthday. It actually had a rehearsal here yesterday, but I didn't say this part because this truth only becomes true today. So what's more, 12 years ago, exactly today, on October 17th, 2013, I was an 18-year-old high school senior in 101, attending my coming-of-age ceremony at the Old Summer Palace. I remember that day so clearly, standing a little formal dress, listening to the dean and principal talking about our future, our responsibilities, and adults. I was anxious about the weekly test the next day, the National College Entrance Examination that is called the next year, and also I was stressing out about my crush. That seems to be the most important things in the universe. But with the hindsight, what was the actual truth of that day? The truth is, God was not a big deal. I defined it. But my life did not follow the plan I laid out, such as attending a top law school in Beijing, a twist of it sent me to Hong Kong and to America, and eventually back to here. And also the truth is, the high school relationship that feels so all-consuming, well, it ended not long after. So here I am at 30, I'm still drowning a sea of feelings. I'm anxious about finishing my dissertation. I'm worried about my future because I'm going to graduate the next year and will need to find a job. And also I just had a fight with my boyfriend yesterday night. But I suspect that in another 12 years, when I look back to those days, I can see the truth of today. So the theme of today's event is truth, feelings, and everything between. I used to see it as a spectrum. On the one end, we have the messy world of feelings, and the other, we have the stable world of truth. And I thought we should pick a side and spend our life trying to get there. Go through all the meaningless void in between. But my journey taught me that this picture might be wrong. Because in between is everything. The in-between is where life happens. It's a journey of an 18-year-old anxious about her exam crush, slowly becoming the 30-year-old standing on the stage. It's personal growth. It's the process of a nation's collective feelings shifting over decades until a debated question becomes settled law. It's societal change. So what's my final message? I want to end by answering the question my students always ask. What's the answer to the case? Remember the case? So the secret is, the whole point of the case of Spelunkia Explorer is that there's no answer. In the original text, the case goes before 5 judges. They delivered completely different verdicts for completely different reasons. They can't agree. And in fact, one judge even so torn that he withdrew from the case. There is no single truth, just as there are no two feelings can perfectly align. There is just struggle, the debate, the journey, in between. So if you ever find yourself lost in that space, torn between your heart and your head, don't worry. It doesn't mean that you're failing. It means you're thinking, you're growing, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So just keep walking right through with everything in between. Thank you.
Wait, can everyone stay because we still have like one speaker? I know it's supposed to be like the period, but we don't have run-in today. Like the run-in is suspended because of the situation. I guess you should probably stay because we have like one more speaker. 大家都回来一下吗？It's like only 5 minutes. Oh my